All right, welcome to Sermon Preparation and Delivery. We're going to be looking at time management today for the most part, and also a presentation about meet the congregation. Let's begin in Psalm 90, which is Moses' only psalm. So it's also the oldest psalm because Moses, of course, lived in about 1500 years BC, and David, who wrote most of the Psalms, lived about 1000 BC. So this is the oldest psalm by about 500 years. It was thought to be written during the time when the children of Israel rebelled against going into the land of Canaan and conquering what God had given them. And Moses is frustrated with them because they're going to have to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. Waste all this time, and then the younger generation will be allowed to go into the land of Canaan, but the ones that were originally invited to go, they will all die in the wilderness, and those that they said would perish in the wilderness are the only ones that will actually get to go. Well, in that context, we find Moses talking about the value of time. And we're going to just cut to the middle of the psalm instead of looking.
This meeting is being recorded.
At all of it. Let's look in Psalm 90, beginning in verse 9. For all our days are passed away in thy wrath. We spend our years as a tale that is told. Now verse 10. The days of our years are 80 years and 10. Probably that had to do with the fact that that generation was not going to outlive 70 years, but it does fit with the general life expectancy in our generation and previous generations, in developed countries at least, where you have the average age in America for women to live is about a little over 80 years. The last I checked, and for men, 79, 78, somewhere along in there. It's going down for the first time in American history because primarily drugs and suicide, but it's still about 70 years. And those who were wandering in the wilderness, if they were, 20 years old and upward, they were not going to be allowed to go into the land of Canaan. So all of them would be expired by the time they reach 70 years. And if by reason of strength they be 80 years, yet it is their strength labor and sorrow, it is soon cut off and we fly away. So even if we live to be 80 or more years, the lifespan seems to be short because we pass through the years quickly and then we get to the end and we think, is this all there is? Or I would like to have more time. So the earlier we recognize that, the more we're able to impact our influence in the world, because we can use our time wisely. We can learn not to squander time or waste time, and then we'll get more done in the number of years that we have, which will soon seem to be fewer than we wish. Verse 11, who knoweth the power of thine anger, even according to thy fear, so is thy wrath. That's speaking about God being angry with the children of Israel who refused to go into Canaan's land. But the principle in verse 12 is what we want to focus on. So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts to wisdom. I find it interesting in verse 10 that he uses the phrase, the days of our years. We don't usually speak like that. We usually either say the years of our lives or the days of our lives, but we don't combine the two. But that phrase, the days of our years, points to the fact that we are granted life in years. We count life in years, but we are granted life in days. So we say, well, how many years, how old are you? And we will give the answer in years, but we can't live life a year at a time. We have to live life a day at a time. So life is composed of days, but also of years, because soon those years will be used up and those days will be gone. So if we're going to make a difference in the years, we have to make a difference in how we use the days. If life itself is going to be extended or valuable or useful, it will be because we have learned to master 24-hour periods at a time, the days of our lives. So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. So the goal is to find wisdom, to act wisely, so that we can use time wisely. Now, what we're going to do is just look at some ways to use time from a preacher's perspective, and then we will make an application to students' perspective. But let's start with a bigger picture, which applies to all of us. Preaching is a time-consuming activity or lifestyle. It's sort of like a farmer. A farmer doesn't go to work. He just gets up and work is all around him. Everywhere he looks is something to do. That's just a lifestyle. And that is the way it is with ministry or preaching. We get up and work is all around us. There's no punching a clock and the day's over, and so I'll go home and I don't start back to work until tomorrow. It's more like I'm just always engaged, and I take some breaks out of that are not directly involved in ministry, but they still have an impact, because you never know when someone's watching, and our influence can be increased. Or when someone is going to ask us a question, we don't say, well, I'm not working right now, I'm not going to answer your question. Or we have an opportunity for a Bible study, we say, well, I would do it, but I'm off right. We're just always, it's who we are. So we want to learn to use our days and to recognize that there are certain ways that we can impact how much we get done and how well we do it. There was a time in my life when I was burning out. I was just not able to keep all the balls in the air at the same time, and I was getting frustrated to some degree because there were so many good things to do, and it seemed like I didn't have time to do all of them. So I spent some time reading and studying about time management, and I bought some books from a business perspective, because the same principles that work in the secular world work in the spiritual world, at least many of them. And so I've through the years tried to practice those lessons that I've learned and adapted them to the work that we're doing as preachers. So I'm going to go through 12 points today, and you feel free to jump in and ask questions whenever you want to, so that if there's something that, it applies more directly to your situation, we'll be happy to address that. But I'm just going to talk about, in general, how we as preachers can get more done to use our time more wisely. So let's just dive right in. Number one, if I'm going to number my days, I need to establish goals. If I go through life and I don't really have a purpose, if I don't really know where I'm going, then other people are going to determine that for me. There's always going to be someone who wants us to do something, who invites us to be involved in something, or there's going to be those who are demanding that we do this for them. And if we don't have a plan, then we're just going to bounce around to whatever happens in the moment. And that's not all bad, because there are opportunities that we don't plan for, but it's also probably not going to be productive, and it's not going to be intentional. And if we are going to do our best, then we need to intend our lives. We need to do what Jesus wants us to do. In order to do that, we have to set some goals. So what are some characteristics of good goals? Number one, write them down. They become less nebulous. They're fuzzy, foggy, just a thought. I want to do this, but it's not really concrete until I write that goal down and I figure out exactly what I'm desiring to do, and I put it in words, and maybe I adjust those words over time, making them more precise. So goals should be written. Number two, goals should be prayed over. I do not want to go through life using my own wisdom. I want to ask for the Lord's wisdom. Whatever it is that He wants me to do, whatever doors He opens for me, I want to be always involved in doing the best things with this day. So that the goals should be prayed about as I set the goals, but they should also be prayed about as I execute the goals. Each day, praying about today's activities. I know I'm going to be teaching this class I know I'm going to have this Bible study. I know I'm going to be preaching this sermon, or I know that I'm going to be preparing for this, whatever it is. So I pray through my day ahead of time. And certainly a day that's prayed over or prayed about is going to go better than a day that isn't prayed over or prayed about. You know, when you think about Matthew 6:9-13, where Jesus taught us to pray, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And then he goes through, give us today our daily bread. And if I remember to pray before my day starts, is that day going to be better than if I don't? If you believe in prayer, you would have to answer that yes. Well, how much better? Is a day that's prayed over going to be 1% better? 10% better? 25% better? I don't know the answer to that, but certainly there is power in prayer. So I want to pray about my goals because that's how I'm going to be living my life. Then the goals should be attainable, number 3. Sometimes when you're excited, maybe it's the first of the year and you're setting goals for the new year and you just, think I'm going to do all these great things, but later it settles in that, this was a little too ambitious. This was a little too much. There's no way I can do all this in this time frame. So after I set my goals, and even in the process of setting them, I should think about, I don't want to set myself up for failure. I want to set myself up for success. So I want to challenge myself. I want to make sure that I am doing as much as I can do, but I also don't want to discourage myself by saying, I'm going to do this great thing and I'm going to do all these things, and then I don't do any of them very well, and then I become discouraged about it. So I want to make goals that are attainable. Number 3, measurable. Or number 4, measurable. That means that a goal is not really a goal. It's just a wish until I put something in there that helps me know when I have reached it. For instance, I could say I want to lose weight. That's not a good goal. I want to lose 15 pounds by this date is a better goal. And if I build into the goal how to reach the goal, it's even better still. So I want to lose 15 pounds by the end of the year by exercising more and cutting down on carbohydrates. Well, that's more specific. That gives me something I can measure. So I can measure it each meal. Have I cut down on carbs? I can measure it each day. Have I gotten my steps in, or have I gone to the gym, or however it is that I'm going to exercise? And then I can measure it also, 15 pounds. Well, here I am 2 weeks in. Have I lost 2 pounds? Or have I lost 3 pounds? Or have I gained a pound? So I can measure it. So the same thing with spiritual goals. We may set a goal of, I want to convert 12 people this year, 1 person a month. Well, that's a good goal, but how am I going to do that? I want to convert 12 people this year by spending time with non-Christians at the coffee shop, or by going door to door, or by sweeping the pews of those who are coming to our services that haven't obeyed the gospel yet. So I want to put where am I going to get these prospects? Or I could say it this way. I want to convert 12 people this year by having a Bible study with a non-member every Tuesday night, to keep that as my night for evangelism. So if I have a Tuesday night coming up, maybe the one not this week, but next week, and I say, well, I'm going to finish my study, it looks like this week, then I need to have someone else. I'll begin to pray about that. Lord, lead me to some soul today. Help me to find someone. I'm watching, I'm looking, I'm talking to people, and I may even talk to other members of the church and say, well, I have an opportunity, I have an opening for a Bible study next Tuesday night. Does anyone have someone that you would like to bring? And we will have that study. So you see how goals should be both attainable and measurable, but then accountable. That's where you put the date to it. Because if you say, I want to lose 15 pounds by the end of the year, so January 1 comes, and you look at the record of your weigh-ins, and you say, oh, I haven't lost but 3 pounds. Well, I didn't meet that goal. Or you say, I want to baptize 12 people this year with the Lord's help. And I've only baptized 3, and it's November. I'm not, reaching my goal. I'm not helping myself to reach the goal. I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I made a goal that was not attainable. Maybe I have not been praying about it. Maybe I've not been working on it, giving it the priority that it deserves, but there should be accountability built in, because most things are done before the deadline. As students, I deal with students every day. When do they write their papers or turn in or write the sermons that they have to turn in? It's usually the week of the assignment, and most often it's the night before the assignment. And we don't do our best work that way, but accountability makes us do things. If you have deacons who have been assigned a certain work by the elders, well, they don't need to be told, just get this work done. They need to say, we want to meet with you about that in 3 months or 1 month. And we're going to have regular meetings every 4th Sunday of the month. Well, that deacon is going to procrastinate perhaps for 2 or 3 weeks, but he knows he's going to have to give a report on this given day. So there's an accountability built in to that, which is important, and it helps us to be motivated to accomplish our goals. There are several verses listed about goal setting and goal keeping. Proverbs 15:22, Proverbs 16:13, Proverbs 21:5, Jeremiah 29:11, the plans that I have for you, God talked about. And then Luke 14:28, count the cost before you start building a building project. So that involves putting a budget together. It involves how many square feet are going to be in this building. It involves getting some kind of blueprint or plan. And am I going to need a contractor? So a lot goes into counting the cost, and that would be equivalent to setting the goals, to putting together the plan. All right, number 2, if you want to use days better, be intentional about it, number 1. Number 2, use an ABCD system. Ephesians 5:16 says, redeeming the time, for the days are evil. Redeeming means to buy back, or we might say to win back, to recover, to salvage. If you looked at your life for the last 7 days, you might say, well, if I could go back and live it again, I could use my time better. I could salvage maybe 10 hours over 7 days if I really was trying to use time more wisely. So I can't go back and live 7 days, but I can look at the next 7 days. And I'm going to live those 1 day at a time. So the way I implement change in my life is to do it today. That's the only day I have to work. And so that involves setting priorities. And that's really what number 2 is. You set your goals, but then you've got to set your priorities for the day. And this is a system, I first read about this from the president of Bethlehem Steel, who had so much to do, he couldn't accomplish it. And he invited a time management consultant or a consultant in to talk to him about time management. And he said, if you will help me to get more time into my day, more work done in a day, I'll pay you whatever is reasonable. And so the consultant said, well, I want you to sit down with this piece of paper and pencil and write down everything that you have to do today. And so he sat down and wrote out a list of things. He brought it back to the consultant. The consultant didn't even take the paper. He didn't even look at it. He said, okay, I want you to take that back now and number them in the order of importance. How important are these things to success for you to accomplish them today? So he went back and he sat down and he numbered them, from first top priority down to the least priority, and rearranged them by numbers. And then he came back and tried to hand the paper to the consultant. Again, the consultant said, no, I don't need to see that. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to begin with number one and do as much as you can do today on accomplishing that. So if you can accomplish the entire entity, then mark that one out, go to number two, then go to number three, go to number four. If you can't accomplish it completely, then get it as far as you can get it today, and then move to the next one. And then he said, I want you to do this for 30 days. If you find it to be helpful, I want you to introduce the concept to your business, Bethlehem Steel, and let your managers, and then later all employees, implement this same procedure. And sometime later, 3 months, 6 months later, the consultant received a check in the mail for $10,000, which was a lot of, it would be a lot of money today, but it was a lot of money in that day, even more than today. And he had only worked for a couple of hours, and he wasn't even really working most of that on, he was just teaching, just a few statements in reality, but that was worth $10,000. In fact, the president later said that was the best investment I ever made, because he went on to use that for the rest of his life. So here's one way to look at priorities. So you have a list of things that you want to accomplish in life. That's your goals. Then you need a list of things that you want to do today. I always have a to-do list, and it is always being changed. Every day I consult it, and I mark through the things that I have accomplished. I rearrange things that need to go to the top that have been farther down because the deadline is coming, or for some reason this has become today's work. And then other things I may not get to till tomorrow, or even for 3 months from now, but they're on there so I don't forget them, and so that they can keep moving up the list, because they're important to get done at some point. So everybody needs a to-do list. And when you're in school, it may be, well, I've got this paper coming up, I've got this sermon I've got to preach, I've got this interview I've got to conduct, I've got to whatever, so you put it all on a sheet of paper, beginning of the quarter, beginning of the semester. You say, okay, this is going to be a busy semester. I've got all these things to do. So you begin to say, well, which one's due first? Well, I'm going to put that one toward the top. Which one's going to take a lot more thought than the others? Well, I'll put that one where I can give it some thought ahead of time. And I may want to front end load it by saying, well, I can knock these 3, 4, 5 things out this weekend. And then that's going to make me feel successful. It's going to give me energy for the project, because look, I've already got 5 out of my 25 things done, and it's just Monday, the first Monday of the quarter, or the second Monday of the quarter. That you want to build on your successes. So a to-do list. Now, once you get your to-do list, this is a way of thinking. You don't actually have to use the letters, but if it's helpful, use the letters. A, things that must be done today. So I've already knocked out one thing that had to be done, or 2 things that had to be done today. So I got up and I had some proofing that had to be done because there was an email blast going out at 8 a.m. that I had to sign off on or edit before it went out. So I got that done first thing. Yeah, I would have done it yesterday, but it didn't come in until sometime during the night. So it had to be done at the last minute. It's not best to do things at the last minute, but sometimes you have to. Then I had to prepare for this class. So I started that yesterday, and I worked on it this morning, making some notes, reading through some things I wanted to say. So that had to be done. It was time sensitive, because when 9:30 came, I had to be in front of this camera talking to you. I got other things on my list that have to be done. I've got another class to teach today for 2 hours. So I've studied for that. I'm just going to review that. I'm going to go read through my chapters again, but that will happen between now and 2 o'clock, Lord willing. Then there are, you know how it is. There's always something. I'm speaking on a lectureship this weekend, so that's the next thing on the agenda after I get through today's class. I got to pack for the plane. And then I've got to get that lesson ready. It's on the resurrection of Christ. So I've preached on that many times, but I'm going to get it in my head. I'm going to boil down what I really want to say, and I speak on Sunday night. So you always got things coming up. So here are things that I must do today. Let's get those knocked out first. These are vital to my success. Number two, I've got things that should be done today, but if I don't get to them, there are no immediate consequences. I need to get to, let's just say, that lesson for Sunday night. But if I don't get to that today, I can do that tomorrow. I can do it on the plane, and I will be working on it, So there's some things that you can say, well, I hope I'll get to that today, but if I don't, that's lower priority than the things that are required for today that I have deadlines to meet. C is things that can be put off, but they eventually must be done, like your taxes, for instance. So you say, well, I've got to do my taxes, but it's not due until, April 15, or if you do an extension till October 15 or November 15. So eventually I'm going to have to do that. I can't put it off forever. And if I put it off too long, then I'm going to have a hard time finishing in time and getting all my deductions and getting all my paperwork in. And I may even have to end up paying a penalty because I missed the deadline. So there are things that can be put off, but they can only be put off for so long. So if I get a block of time or an opportunity, for instance, with taxes, I will usually take my tax papers with me to a gospel meeting when I'm going by myself. And I will, especially if I'm going to be staying in a house, because sometimes you'll have churches that have a house by the building no one lives in, and they'll say, you'll be staying here this week. And I'll say, well, that's a good time to do this because I'll have room to spread out. I'll have a kitchen table, and I'll sort through all my, So eventually get to it when there's a good opportunity, or I have a break in my schedule that allows me to take a few hours or a day to do this project. Then number D, or letter D, helpful things if I get caught up. Maybe I want to read a book. Maybe I want to improve my people skills. That's not something that I probably am going to put on today's must-do list, but it would really be helpful as a preacher if I learned how to, we're talking about time management. So I could just say, I'm going to read a book on time management. It would help me. Or I'm going to improve my persuasive skills. I'm going to read a book about that, or I'm going to watch some videos on that. So it's not something that's pressing, but something that would be good to do and that would benefit me if I did it. So it goes on the list. So one, establish your goals. Two, you want to establish your priorities and use some kind of method to help you to see which ones are the most important. And I might say, from a preacher's perspective on this one, there are two things that never need to be far from the top. Those two things are Sunday's sermon and evangelism. Those two things can easily get put down the list by more urgent things. And then Sunday morning comes and I get up and do a poor job preaching the gospel. I don't want to do that. I want to put my time in so that I don't have to rely on my gift of gab. I don't have to just pull out a sermon I preached before that I'm not really excited about. It's not going to make much of an impact. I want to make sure that I am putting my time into study, so I can't put that off too long. And my other thing is evangelism, because there's nothing that I'm going to do that's more important than souls. And if souls are not close to the top, then I'm going to be doing things that in the long run, they might be helpful, in my life or in my family's life. But on the day of judgment, they're not going to matter. But the Bible studies that I have and the sermons that I preach to strengthen the souls that are saved or to convert others, those things are going to matter when the world's on fire. So I want to make sure that I keep those up at the top, that I don't let those fall too far down. But now let's talk about using time wisely, how to get more time out of your day. Number 3 is to recognize the Pareto principle. It's sometimes called the 80-20 rule. Pareto was an economist that figured out, and I'll put this to the test. You could put it to the test. You'll probably find out that it's true in your life too. He figured out that 80% of the benefit comes from 20% of the projects. So Eugene, you could put this in different areas of your life. You probably wear 20% of your clothes 80% of the time. You probably, you could do it with exercise, you could do it with menu or diet, and you could do it with, well, let's just make the application. Let's cut to the application. So as you look at your work for the Lord, what is the most beneficial long-term for the kingdom that you are involved in? Well, we just touched on 2 of them: preaching sermons and saving the lost, teaching Bible studies. It may be that you look at your life and you say, well, I'm teaching 2 Bible classes, preaching 2 sermons. I've got a radio program. I am involved in the youth program, and I host the youth activities at my house. I am going to visit the sick at the hospitals, and I'm taking care of some widows, helping with them. I meet with elders. I'm involved in the city council or in a community school group. I am using some of my time with my children, some of my time with other people's children. I'm reading a lot. I'm watching these videos. I'm involved in this podcast. So I've got a lot of things going on. And before long, I am moving from project to project without really preparing for the next thing. Preparation is the key to excellence. And if I'm going to the next thing without any preparation and I'm just winging it, I'm probably not going to be excellent at it. So I may need to look at my life and say, I got so many things going on. What are the most beneficial things I'm involved in? Now, let me give you some examples, for instance, that would be different. Now, all of us as preachers do some of the same things, but most of the preachers that I know have something that's their thing, that is their project, that they are really passionate about. Sometimes it's a Christian camp. They have started a camp, or they have a week of camp, and so they spend time during the year preparing for that. They talk about it to get new people to come to it. They write the material for it. They lay out the schedule for it. They think about new activities that will make it exciting for the people who come, and they'll be able to benefit from it and want to come back. Somebody else, it may be mission trips. This preacher begins going on a mission trip to this location when he's in college, and he learns the culture, he learns his way around, he's comfortable there, and maybe there's some language skills that he develops so that he can go there every year. Maybe he goes there on an annual trip, takes other people with him from his congregation or among his friend group or others that share that passion. And then maybe he starts going 2 times a year. Maybe he's not a gospel meeting preacher. He's just not someone that gets asked to do meetings or that has a real interest in that, but his passion is going to Russia or Costa Rica or Bahamas, wherever it is, to carry the gospel. And maybe at some point in his life, he says, let's move there. Let's go spend 2, 3, 5 years, or maybe the rest of our lives in evangelism, because that's where I'm doing the most good. My brother, some of you know Wade, is a missionary, stateside missionary, but he goes to, he's gone to a lot of different countries, Costa Rica included, Peru, but he is focusing on Mexico now because he figured out that he's getting more accomplished there right now than he is in scattering himself around other places. And the primary reason is his school there. So he's able to impact students, and then they go out. So he's multiplying himself. So that's what I'm saying that we all should do. Look at what you do and see if there's something that you're really good at, or that you feel like is in your 20% that you're getting your 80% benefit from. And then put more time into that. It could also be personal Bible studies. You say, that's my passion. It could be teens and children. You say, we're losing too many of them. I'm going to make a difference in that area. So figure out what it is. Maybe yours is writing. Maybe it's podcasting. Maybe it's a video. There may be a number of ways. There are many ways to get the gospel out. What can I do? What's my most effective way to do it? So that is recognize, you prioritize in a daily sense here, but you prioritize in a life sense here. That is, where is my life going to go? What am I going to do? And then that will impact your days. But this is the bigger picture. Of course, Ephesians 5:15 and 1 Corinthians 14:40 talk to us about let all things be done decently and in order. In order to do that, we've got to put some thought into it. All right, number 4. Always do important. Yes, go ahead.
Quick question. You talked about your evolution as a preacher, from when you first got out of school to having a family, to the teens and everything else. How much did that 80-20 rule impact you in your preaching compared with the family?
That's a good question. Let me say it this way. I think that it's not so much a competition between the two as it is, this is our family. This is what our family does, so a lot of times, one of the good things that we've done through the years is whenever I would go preach a gospel meeting somewhere, my kids have been with me over, seen a lot of America that way, from California to Texas, New Orleans, Charleston, Pennsylvania, all over. And we were homeschooling, so they were able to go with me and do their school there. But instead of just reading about these places in a book, they, went with me to the battlefield or to, this architecture in Augusta, Georgia that was brought over from this European place. So all these kind of interesting things, and then involving them in Bible studies, going to see the widows, making cookies or something to take. And I would always take the kids with me on those visits, and the kids still talk about that. And now I've noticed that since they're grown, especially the two that are still in the Jacksonville area, especially my daughter, she goes and visits those people on her own now. And those widows just love her because she loves them. So I think, number one, you want to involve your family. We are a preacher's family. We are all about the Lord's work. But number 2, don't be afraid to give your family the priority they deserve. There are times when it would be easy to disappoint your family so you can impress the congregation. Sometimes you just have to say, no, I can't do that. I have plans, or I have an appointment. And that appointment is your family. And sometimes it's easier just to get out of town to do that. A lot of our family time we would spend, like I would go, if I were in a gospel meeting somewhere, we might go 2 days early. And then we would spend some time seeing what was there to see. And then you're out of town, so people aren't expecting you to come make this visit or be at this ball game or whatever it is. So I think you have to say, I'm going to involve my family, 1. Number 2, I'm going to give my family priority. I'm going to try not to interrupt plans for the family for something that comes up later that I can do at another time. Now, it may be if somebody says, I want to be baptized, I don't say, well, I got this thing tonight with my family. No, I'll do that, but I'll make it up to my family. And always remember this, and you probably have heard this, but your family is part of the congregation too, so they need you to minister to them like the other people's families need you to minister to those families. And you have more responsibility. We as preachers have more responsibility there because we are a husband, we are a father. And we're not a husband or father to other members of the church, so we have to give them the time that they need. So there are different ways to do that. I'll just throw out a couple. I remember Brother Winkler used to tell us that don't have one family night a week. Have one Bible study night a week, and give every night to your family. I think there's some wisdom in that. It's not that, well, I got family night. Well, that's not enough time to give to a family. So make your priorities. And also, being a preacher, we can be flexible so that it doesn't have to be at night. If I've got a Bible study set up for Tuesday night, let's say, well, why don't the kids or the family go do a picnic in the afternoon, or go to whatever they like to do, go fishing or something? Well, I'm going to be working that night, so I can use a part of the day, the equivalent of what I would have normally been with my family, just do it at a different time. And of course, you can let your elders know about that, but everybody in the congregation doesn't need to know about everything that you do in your family. You answer to the elders, you give them the church the right amount of time, and then don't worry about, what so-and-so going to say if they see me out here fishing on Tuesday afternoon. Well, that's not their business. And if they want to talk to you about it, you can tell them, well, I got a Bible study tonight, and I promised my kids I'd take them fishing, and the elders and I talked about that, and that's the way we're going to do it. It's not up for discussion, because that's the right thing to do. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's move on then to number 4. This is about daily priorities again. Always do the important work first. That's a restatement of A. So be sure that I have something important to do today first. I don't just get up and wherever the wind blows is what I do. I like, before my feet hit the floor in the morning, to say, this is what I'm doing today. It gets me out of bed. It makes me excited about the day. I get to teach God's word today. I've got a Bible study today. I'm going to, go visit this person, whatever it is, something that I'm going to accomplish today that matters in the eternal picture of the kingdom of God. So do your important work. If you do it first, then it gets done. Because if you put it off, it's easy for it to get put off and put off and put off all day, and finally it doesn't even get done that day, and you didn't accomplish the big thing you wanted to do. So set your priorities on things above, Matthew 6:33, and then accomplish those things. Number 5, avoid procrastination. Procrastination is the thief of time, and we only have so much time. We have about 29,000 days in life, and you can do the math on where you are in your 29,000 days. If you want to, just multiply your age times 365 and subtract that number from 29,000. And that will tell you how many days you've got left to serve the Lord, to accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish in life. And I will prepare you for that. It's not as many as you think it is. And it's going to be a little bit, it could be a little bit discouraging to say, you mean I've only got 10,000 days left, or I've only got 15,000 days left, and I've already used more than I've got? Well, that may be the case, but you may be able to get more done by practicing what we're talking about today in the next 15 years than you've got done in the previous 30 years. Especially as we gain experience and age and recognition, then more doors open for us, and we learn how to use time better, and we get more irons in the fire. And as long as we can manage all of them, we can accomplish a lot in a short amount of time by God's help and God giving us those opportunities. But if we're going to do that, we've got to avoid procrastination. I don't feel like doing it today. I'll just do it later. I'm going to put that off. Oh, it's going to be raining today. Oh, I've got, it's so easy to come up with excuses. So there are a number of verses that emphasize the importance of work today. Jesus said, I must work today, for the night is coming when no man can work. John 9:4, 2 Corinthians 6:2. Today is the day of salvation. Ecclesiastes 11:4 about making excuses. Oh, it's snowy, or it's cold, or it's raining, and I'll farm another day. Well, somebody else is out there farming, and you can overcome those obstacles. James 4:17. We do not want to waste a day, because life is a vapor. It appears for a short time, vanishes away. So there are more than three, but I'm going to talk about three things that cause procrastination and how to overcome them. Number one, overwhelming task. I've got this elephant to eat, and I just don't know where to start. I'll give you a personal example. With me, it's the polishing the pulpit schedule. That thing is a monster, takes a lot of hours, probably about 500 hours to put together. And now we've added another one in Branson, Missouri. So it's going to take, some of that will synchronize and it won't take more time. It'll just be reinvesting in a different way, but some of it's going to take more time. So how do you overcome your elephant, your PTP, whatever it is that you're saying, I really need to get this done, but it's such a big project. I just don't know where to start. All right, here are some ideas. Number one, break the ice. Just start it. Just say, I'm going to open that file. I'm going to do like with polishing the pulpit. I'm going to put in just one speaker. I'm going to put in Dave Deming. What's he going to speak on? Or Daniel Steers. What topics has he said to me, or have I asked, or would he be good at? So I go in, and first thing I know, I've got these slots, and the name is there, and a topic is there. A room has been decided, and I've already got. Before I know it, I've done 5 speakers, because once you get into a project, it's easier to go a little farther than you thought you would. So just break the ice with an article. I just had to write had the privilege to write an article for Spiritual Sword. I finished it, sent it off yesterday morning. This has been a really busy month with meetings and polishing the pulpit things, teaching. So I wasn't able to jump right on that like I normally do. And then I noticed, hey, that thing's due on Friday. And I've never missed the deadline. And I wasn't going to miss one, but I was thinking, I'm too close. So I just jumped in, but it was a big project. Oh man, I got all this reading to do. I need to figure out what the main points are. So there was a little bit of that. But then I just said, I'm just going to break the ice. I'm just going to write a sentence. I'm going to open the file and give it a name. And I'm going to jot down a few ideas. So next thing I had a paragraph. And then I started reading, and it just exploded. It had 25 pages. And I'm like, oh boy, I got to get this down to 7 pages. So break the ice, number one. Number two, divide and conquer. With the polishing the pulpit schedule, this is one way I do it. Do it by track. Say, okay, I'm just going to do the college classes. There's 15 classes or something. So there's a lot of other tracks, but I'm just going to do that one today. And I put that on my to-do list, and then I mark it off when I'm done with it. Or I can say, well, I'm just going to do the youth speakers. Who's going to teach the children's class, the 10 to 12-year-old classes, which I don't schedule the ones under that, but schedule at least some of the ones for 10 to 12, what's called PTP camp. So I'll say, I'll do that. Or I'll say, well, BJ Clark sent me some ideas for topics, and I think I'll just go ahead and get those plugged in. I'll just do that speaker. So I'm dividing, and before long, I have gotten more and more of the schedule done. It's like a little bit at a time. Number 3, do one thing at a time. So you got a big project, you got other things to do. You say, no, this morning between 7 and 12 or whatever your hours are, I'm not going to do anything but work on the PTP schedule or whatever your project is. And then you're 5 hours into it, and you're like, wow, I got a lot knocked out. And what happens, at least with me, and it probably will happen with you, is that it generates its own energy after a while. Like that article, at first it was like, I got to do this. I better do it. And then before long, it got to the point where I was trying to finish up other projects to get back to it because I was excited about it. And I was thinking about it during the night. I said, I need to change the wording of that point. And then first thing in the morning. So it creates a life of its own because once you get into something, it builds its own momentum. So you can do that by spending, just dedicating some time to that one project. Number 4, find a solitary place to do it. The interruptions take a lot of time because you're working on something or focused on it, you know where you are in the document or in the project, and then somebody comes in and they say, I want to talk, can we talk a minute? So you say, yeah, or you get a phone call. And then your mind's totally off of that, it's on something else, and then in a little while you come back and you say, okay, where was I? So you have to go back to the top and read down to get back in the flow of the thought. And then, so it takes time. And if you're interrupted 4 times, which is not unusual at all in a morning, then that's going to take maybe 40 extra minutes because it takes you 10 minutes to get back up to speed to where you were. So find a solitary place where you can work and not be disturbed. And then ride the momentum. Once a project gets to a certain place, you're like, I'm excited about this. I'm just going to work on this. So ride that momentum when you have it, because you'll get a lot done in a short period of time because you're into it. You're excited about it and you want to do it. So ride that momentum when it shows up. Number 2, procrastination is caused by unpleasant tasks. I just don't want to do this. I dread doing it. My dad used to say, I'd rather take a whooping than have to do it. You know, maybe you felt that way before about something. Maybe something like going to visit a wayward member. You know, they're upset with the elders and it's not going to be pleasant and I dread doing it, but I've got to go find that lost sheep, leave the 99 and go find that lost sheep and bring. So how can I deal with unpleasant tasks? Taxes are like that one, man. I don't like doing taxes. I'd rather be working on a sermon. I'd rather be writing an article. I don't want to have to add up all these numbers and all this. You know, that's just not core values for me, but it's got to be done. So it's an unpleasant task. So here are some principles for dealing with unpleasant tasks. Do it first. Just get it out of the way. In the morning, say, well, today I got to do this. I'm just going to start. There's an old saying about swallow a goldfish first thing in the morning and the rest of the day will go well. You know, just get it out of the way. Psych yourself up the night before. I've started doing this a good bit. Because if you think about it before you have to do it, it defeats procrastination. It's like, okay, I'm going to work on my taxes tomorrow. So I'm going to need this, a calculator there. I'm going to need to be get my papers, all my papers where they. I'm going to. It's going to be nice. It's really going to feel nice to get that done and get that sent off. And I think so you psych yourself up about it. You can even place on your desk tomorrow's important task. You know, time management experts say, keep a clean desk. You know, at the end of the day, everything's off your desk. It's clean. But one thing, the first project for tomorrow is the folder and the only folder on the desk. I come in, it's already there. And just the act of putting it there does something in my psyche. It prepares me for that because I'm on task. And I haven't written this down and I really haven't even figured out how to express it yet, but I've started doing something so much time is wasted and energy is wasted trying to get motivated to do something, deciding to do it. And then what would be the word? Canceling the decision. You know, so I've begun practicing this where I make a decision and I don't revisit it. If I made the decision, I go do it. And I don't think, well, is this the right decision? Should I go to this restaurant instead of this restaurant? Should I do this sermon subject instead of this sermon subject? Always second guessing and always changing and using a lot of energy. It really doesn't matter, you know, as far as what restaurant I'm going to eat at today. Well, a week from now, I won't remember anyway. What sermon topic am I going to preach this week? Well, I need to preach on all the topics. So if I have one in mind, I don't need to be bouncing back and forth. I'll just dive right into that topic. So unpleasant tasks, psych yourself up. Number 3, and I think this one is very helpful, delegate. I've learned that I put things off I don't want to do, but there is somebody else in our organization or in my circle that would love to do that. That would be exciting for them to do, that they will do as good a job on that as I would do in some cases, maybe far better. So delegate it and say, you know, I've been putting this off, or this needs to get done and I can't get to it right now. Would you mind? Would you like to? So find somebody else to do it. Number 4, use the measles approach. Measles approach is if you have some papers on your desk and you don't know what to do with them, you know, it's like, well, it's been laying there for a week. So every time you touch that piece of paper, put a dot on it, a red dot, or whatever pen you have in your hand. And before long, that thing's going to have the measles. It's going to have dots all over it. So that reminds you of, I've been wasting time on this. Let me just make the decision. Sometimes I just throw it away. You know, it's worth more in the trash to me than it is on my desk, taking time every day or taking energy or being frustrating to me. So maybe it's not even something that I need to keep at all or need to do. Maybe I can get somebody else to do it, or maybe I can just get it out of the way. Number 3, avoid distractions. I touched on that, but here are some specifics on how to keep distractions from we distract ourselves. So let me start with that one. So procrastination. I got something I don't really want to do, overwhelming task. For whatever reason, I'm procrastinating about it. So the next thing you know, I think I'm going to do it this morning, but I go check my email. Well, that takes 30 minutes. And then I check my phone. Oh, well, I got to text this guy back. What's that? What? Okay, well, that's another 30 minutes. Next thing I think, I need to go get a cup of coffee. So I go out and get a cup of coffee. There's somebody there and we start a conversation. There's another 30 minutes. So I am distracting myself because I don't really want to do it. So don't be your own distraction. And you may need to put your phone in another room or put it on silent. You might need to turn your computer settings to where you're not going to check your email. You're not going to receive a notification all the time that draws your attention over to something else. So here are some other ideas. Identify a time when you're likely to be undisturbed. So I've got this project that's going to take a lot of thought, a lot of energy, and I don't need to be interrupted because that'll slow me down. So when can I do this so that I won't likely be interrupted? I'll give you 2 times. 1, get up early. Not too many people bother you early in the morning. The phone doesn't usually ring. People don't come out of the office if you get up at 4 in the morning, or even 5, or even 6. Now, you also could do the opposite and do it late at night, depending on your internal clock. Are you a night owl or an early bird? You know, you can make yourself the other kind, but whatever works for you, you can say, well, I'm going to just stay up and work on this and stay up till 2 in the morning, get the thing knocked. Nobody's going to bother you from midnight till 2. You'll be on your own. And if your mind and your energy are okay, you might get more done at that time. So identify a time when you're not likely to be disturbed. It might be on the weekend. It could be during lunch. So just find a time. Number 2, keep the door closed. Because that tells people, especially if it's normally open, but you've got it closed, that tells people they'll come around the corner and oh, his door's closed. I guess he doesn't want to be. They'll go back and you won't ever know about that. Number 3, screen your calls. You know, if you have a secretary or your spouse, you can say, well, you know, unless it's really important, I'm not going to take calls this morning. And well, you know, my wife can get through to me. The elders can always get through to me, but otherwise, you know, just say he's not available and take a message. Number 4, you could practice isolation to get a big project done or to overcome procrastination. George Bailey preached for a large congregation, a lot of responsibilities. And there were people always coming into his office. And so he had trouble getting his sermon preparation done. So his elders rented him a hotel room down the street. And that was his study. And he would go down there and nobody knew where it was except the elders and his family. So he could not be disturbed there. So he would go down there and he would use that as a place. You could find some isolation short of doing that. You may just work in your car. You may have a home office. You may go to a park. There's a lot of different ways to accomplish that. But sometimes isolation, it's not a permanent solution, but it can be a project solution. Number next, keep different schedule from others. So if most everybody's at lunch from 12 to 1, you go to lunch from 1 to 2, or better, 1 to 1:30, and you work through lunch. And you might not be disturbed nearly as much if you're yeeing when they're hawing. You know, yin and yang, you're just on a different schedule than other people, and that can give you more time. Now, people are our business, so I need to say that. You know, interruptions sometimes are not interruptions, they're opportunities. And we have to be able to recognize the difference. So it depends on what project we're working on. But I'm thinking about more like writing sermons, things that require me to be away from people and in the book. But there are other times that I need to make time for this, when I need to get out of the office and go be with people, make those visits, do those studies, just be involved in the lives of members so that I can know what needs to be preached. And I can encourage them with my example and my conversation. All right, number 6. Pace yourself. Depending on your personality, you may be a type A driven person, and you may find it hard to cut loose and to say, I'm going to have some downtime. And nobody can be effective long-term if they don't have some downtime. And most people need some every day. And a good rule of thumb would be an hour a day. You can do it for playing with the kids, watching a movie with your wife. You could do it at the gym or the track. Whatever it is that unwinds you, that gets your mind off of anything else, and you're just in the moment. That helps the mind to recharge. It helps it to reset. It's like a spring that's stretched all the time. It loses its power. But if it stretches back and forth, it retains its power. So that's the way our minds are. We have to allow them to retain their power. Number 7, use small amounts of time, gaps between activities. Have you heard the illustration about the barrel with the speaker comes in and says, okay, got this barrel, and he's got different kinds of materials around. He said, okay, I'm going to put rocks in this barrel. So come up here and help me. And so you got rocks, maybe the size, head size, and they're going to put the rocks in there, and it's all the way up the top. And he asks the class, is it full? And they say, yep, that's full. You can't fit any more rocks in there. But then he reaches down behind the podium or the desk, and he pulls out gravels. And then he tips the gravels over into the barrel, and he shakes, and they go down in the cracks. And as soon as it's filled all the way up to the top. And he says, well, is it full now? And they say, yeah, it's full. You couldn't get any more gravels in there. But then he pulls out a sack of sand, and he pours the sand on top, and then he shakes the barrel. And before long, all that sand is sifted down into the barrel. And is it full, you think? Well, it's definitely full now. And then he brings out a container of water, and he pours several gallons of water in there up to the top. Now it's full. You see, it seemed full at other junctures, but it really wasn't. Life is like that. We've got certain things that we have to do that take a lot of time every day. We've got to sleep. We've got to work. We've got family time. or we've got responsibilities that we have, like mowing the grass, washing the clothes, taking out the garbage. You got things that are going to take time. Say, well, my life is filled up. I've got sleep, and then I got work, and then I got responsibilities, and my whole day's gone. Okay. Well, are there some gravel, some sand, or some water we can fit in there somewhere? What about the time that I'm driving to work? Can I listen to my Bible? Yeah. Well, what about the time I'm mowing grass? Can I be thinking about my sermon? Yeah. Well, what about on my lunch break at work? Could I go by and visit someone at the hospital that's right next door to where I work? Yeah, I could do that. So you can get a lot of things done in small amounts of time. Let's say your wife says, let's go shopping. I need to go to the store. So you say, well, that sounds good. So you walk, you ride there and you talk and you visit and you get to the store, and maybe you go in to start. Maybe it's a Ross, a TJ Maxx or something. You go in, you look at the men's stuff and the sales, and you're like, well, I don't see anything. I'm going to go back out to the car because she's still looking, So you go out there and she's in there for 20 or 30 more minutes. Well, you've got time for 20 or 30 minutes to work on something. You can take your computer wherever you go. You can do some work. You can get a lot done in 20 minutes here, 15 minutes there. I used to write a lot of cards when I was in local work, and I would write cards. I'd always have them in the seat beside me. Whenever I would get to a stoplight, a red stoplight, I would write like 3 or 4 cards before it turned green. You can figure out things to do with little amounts of time if you really want to do lots of things. Now, 15 minutes a day, anybody can save 15 minutes a day, equals 90 years, not 90 years, 90 hours in a year. There's no way you say I could get two whole weeks extra in my year. That's just not there. But if you could save 15 minutes a day, you have saved 2 weeks of 40-hour work weeks. We can do that. We just need to use small amounts of time. Number 8, communicate, but do not talk too much. Preachers like to talk. That's a good thing, but we got to keep it within bounds, because sometimes we end up talking, and then we don't get our study done. We don't do our preparation. So we need to communicate with others. We need to talk to them. Even small talk is important in the big picture, but not too much of it. And always remember that meetings fill the time allotted. Like you're going to have a meeting with your elders. You're going to have a meeting with PTP directors, whoever it is. You say, we're going to meet from 9 to 12. Guess how long that meeting is going to last? It's going to last till 12, because everybody says we're meeting for 3 hours. But maybe that meeting only really needed to last for 1 hour and 10 minutes. We could get everything done. So keep that in mind, to give your meetings a shorter amount of assigned time, with a bracket of time afterward that it could extend into if needed. It's better to schedule a meeting too short than too long. And then you can always, then you'll probably end up, even if you go over, you won't go over as much as you would have gone if you had scheduled it for 3 hours to start with. James 1:17, be slow to speak. That ties in with don't talk too much. Number 9, understand energy management. I didn't understand this for a long time, but the last few years, this has been an important concept for me, and I think it is for everybody. We talk about time management, but the truth is everybody has the same amount of time. We got 7 days in a week, 24 hours a day. We've all got the same amount of time. Now, we may outlive someone and extend time in that sense, but for the first 29,000 days, we've all got the same amount of time, or whatever lifespan we have. So it's not really about managing time. Time is not going to be managed. It's going to come and go, and you can't change time. Time is time. What we actually do is manage ourselves in relation to time. How I use time. I don't manage it. It's how I utilize it. I manage myself in relation to it. But even that is not probably the best way to look at it. The best way to look at it is I'm managing my energy in relation to time. There's a whole branch of science dedicated to this, but it has to do with the amount of time, the amount of energy that we have, the energy cycle within a human being as relates to the clock, you know, and it's not the same for every person. So long story short is I need to determine when I'm most energetic, when my head is the clearest, when I'm the slowest, the dullest, and then I plan my activities according to that. And I can do better at different activities at different times of the day. So, for instance, I like to study first thing in the morning. That's when my mind is freshest. In the afternoon, I can study, and I do fairly often, but I don't do as well because my energy level is less in afternoons. And it used to be that I was a night owl and I would stay up and study till 1 a.m. most of the time. But now it gets 9:30 or 10. I'm like, I'm just too tired. I'm going to bed, you know, but I used to not get up as early. So there could be a shifting in our microchronology, our personal biology related to time. So just determine what works for you, and it even may change over time. But here are just some general points that are true of most people. So if I'm going to use to remain energetic throughout the day, I need to watch what I'm eating, especially for lunch. I need to eat breakfast. If I don't eat breakfast, it's likely that I'm not going to my metabolism is not going to go up. I'm not going to be able to think as clearly. For lunch, avoid heavy foods, high carbs, sugars. Protein is the best for energy and thought. So focus on protein. Don't overdo it with the fries and the desserts. Now, here are some general things true of most people. Peak performance, peak physical performance is afternoon and early evening. So if I have something physical to do, probably going to do my best later in the day instead of early in the day. If I need to remember something long-term, and that's the key, long-term, I should study it in the afternoon. I don't really know the science behind that. If I want to remember something short-term, now that would mostly be our sermons. I mean, we want to remember whatever we study forever, but we're not going to remember the sermon points and the illustration and the order of the verses long-term. So sermon preparation often is best done in the morning because I'm trying to get this in my head for Sunday. And once Sunday comes, I'm going to push it out and replace it with something else. So, and then mid-afternoon is a good time for uncomplicated, repetitive tasks. What I used to do in local work was I would go visiting in the afternoon because even though I was tired and I didn't really, you know, my focus wasn't as good, it really didn't matter if I was sitting on the couch visiting with a widow in the congregation. You know, I mean, I can keep a conversation going even when I'm tired. I can drive and get to the next widow's house. So make those visits, the ones that you can in the afternoon. Plus, you don't want to go in the morning because they may not be up and dressed, and you don't want to go too late in the day because you want to spend that time with your family or save it for Bible studies with people that work during the day. And so, in other words, build your schedule based on when you will be successful at those tasks. I've got to do these things today. Well, what would be the best thing to do in the afternoon of this punch list? Well, that's what I'm going to do then. I'm going to save that to that time. Number 10, practice delegation. I touched on that earlier. Let me just follow up quickly. Delegate to someone who will do a better job on that than you will. Everybody has strengths, and preachers often are good at doing different things, many things. But there are, I don't remember who taught me this. I wish I did. Maybe I read it somewhere, but I learned somewhere along the way to delegate to others the things that they will do as well or better than you, and you focus your time and energy on the things you do better than anybody else. That's really helped me through the years. It may not be that I'm more talented. It may just be that it's my assignment to do that thing, like sermons. You know, I'm working in the local congregation. I got a lot of things going on. I might not be the best preacher there ever was, but I'm the one that's going to get up there Sunday. So I need to put my time into that. Here's something else. Maybe folding these bulletins, maybe cleaning out the closet in the behind the baptistry, or stuff that I don't mind doing and I could do it fine, but somebody else that's not doing anything could do just as well, or might actually do a lot better at a lot of things. I say, would you mind taking care of that for me? I got several things to do today and I'm not going to get to it. Yes, brother. There are retired people in most churches that just they just want to help. They want to be involved. So give them that privilege by assigning things to them that they will do well. Number 2, do not abdicate. When you assign something, be sure to check up on it. Make sure that it got done. And set deadlines for follow-up. Elders with deacons, they say, well, we would like for you to take on this task, and we want to visit with you again about that in the 1st of next month. So that helps them to stay motivated and to get busy, because they know they're going to go in and talk to the elders. And then recognize achievement. That guy that cleaned out the baptistry this week, you might say when you come in Sunday, you might say, maybe you're preaching on working in the vineyard. You say, Brother Smith came up here this week. Nobody would ever have known this, but he came up here and cleaned out that baptistry. And we hope that we get to use it today. We're planning on baptizing someone at the end of this sermon today, because we know that people are close to obeying the gospel. And boy, it's ready right now. So you just recognized him, and you also worked it into a positive point about obeying the gospel. Number 11, plug your time leaks. Figure out what it is that's taking too much, an inordinate amount of time. I've got a friend that's got way more to do for the Lord than he can keep done. And there's more coming onto his plate. And so we've been talking about, how can we delegate this? What's the solution for it? So he did a time study recently. He just kept a log by his desk and recorded what he was doing and how long it took to do it. And at the end of the day, he said, this is what's taking way too much of my time. I'm having to answer, X number of calls, and they're taking that right there. If I could get somebody to take that off of me, it would give me an hour a day. An hour is a lot of time. So figure out where your time leak is. Is it mail? Spending too much on the mail, much time, stand over a trash can whenever you get your mail, and don't even ever put it on your desk. Just chunk it. If it's junk mail, you don't have any interest in it, you don't need to open it, get rid of it.
Right.
Yes.
That's what I do all the time. And when I go to my mailbox at home, I take my little garbage thing with me, and I go through it right there, because I know if it gets on that table, it's just going to take up my time.
Yeah, that's very smart. I never thought about taking the trash can to the mailbox, but I like it. That's good. What about socializing? We touched on that earlier. Just, know yourself well enough to say, I'm wasting too much time talking to people when I really need to be getting other things done. So just learn how to break off a conversation and say, boy, I'm enjoying this conversation, but I got a sermon staring me in the face. I got to go get busy on that. People understand. And in fact, if I waste a lot of time, they also understand that, and it's not a good look for me. So even though in the moment they enjoy talking to me, if I'm always talking, they're going to recognize that I'm not getting anything, getting much done, or getting as much done as I could. So watch socializing, misplacing things. You know, you can spend 15 minutes looking for something every day. I spend too much time looking for old sermons and articles. I've got a new way to do it. I taught you how to do that, and those of you that we've had class together before. Now I don't lose things as much, but boy, I spend too much time looking for things. So get organized, and then you end up, even though it takes a little bit of time to do it right, to organize it, then it will save time for the rest of your life. So organize, don't be haphazard. Then number 5, people who monopolize your time. Now this is what you like to do. You know, that's when I want to talk. This is somebody that wants to talk to me. Now, we're in the people business, and people need to have access to us. But in local congregations, you'll sometimes have, very often you will have somebody who will, you know, they're retired, they got nothing to do, get a cup of coffee, come up there and walk in your office, sit down, prop up the feet, and they're going to be there for 2 hours because they got nothing else to do. And they think the preacher has nothing else to do. Well, you got to learn how to deal with that. So you can't let people monopolize your time, and then, or you end up losing the time you were going to spend with your family, or losing the time that you're going to spend with people that really needed your time a whole lot more than this guy does. So there are different ways to do that. One is people that have decent social skills can take a hint. You know, he comes and sits down, and you visit with him for 5 minutes or so, and you turn around to your computer, and you know, you're still glancing over at him, but you're starting to work. Some people don't get that hint, but most people go, well, I guess I better be going. I see you've got some things you need to, yeah, brother, I enjoy visiting, but I really got a lot to do today. So, and then there are other ways to do it. Say he doesn't pick up on that or doesn't care. Well, I sometimes would stand up and say, well, brother, it's been good visiting with you, but I'm going to have to get back at my work and stick out my hand to shake it, for him to shake it. And then, oh, well, all right, well, it's good to see you. I'm gonna go on down and visit with the guys at the coffee shop, I guess. So, you know, another way is to get up and say, well, I gotta run the restroom. And then you come back and he's still sitting there, but you don't sit back down. You say, hey, brother, you know, you stand up and you stand over there beside him for a minute, and maybe he gets the hint, or maybe he doesn't. And you say, well, you know, brother, I gotta go. I gotta go get something out of my car. I guess we'll visit together Wednesday. We'll visit some more maybe on Wednesday. And so you go out to your car and you get, you know, a track you left out there or whatever. You say, well, or maybe you just run home. You know, say, well, I gotta go, but so you go home and come back. It saved a lot more time than it would have taken to talk to him, because by the time you got back, he would have still been there. There are other ways to do that, but our time's about gone. Number 12, practice time-saving techniques, overlapping. I save phone calls to return them all at once, usually when I'm driving. So, I mean, you got to drive. So you could talk on the phone when you're driving. And if you've got 5 phone calls to return, then they don't take as long, because you say, well, brother, I got to go. I got 4 more calls to make this morning. And he said, well, okay. You know, so overlap things. It's not just phone. There's a lot of things that are similar. You put them like writing a sermon. I'll write a sermon or a Bible class, and then that will become a tract, and it will become a chapter in a book, and it will become a Bible course, you know, different ways to use the same material. Or you may turn a sermon that you preached at one location into a podcast that week that will be published 10 weeks from now. You know, so overlapping saves time. Clustering, grouping similar things together. Calendar, I could spend a lot of time on keeping a calendar, but that's vital to time management. Put it on a calendar. And that way you won't forget it. It also helps you to space it out and to see what other things are going to be going on at that time. So, well, I can't do it then because of this. So keep a calendar and keep it up to date. Keep it up to date. And then maintain your files. A lot of these are done electronically now, but however you want to do it. Generally, you want to have a current projects file, a tickler file. What a tickler file is ideas for the future, reminders. Like you might have a physical folder. You could also do it on your computer calendar, be a physical folder where you say, Sister so-and-so's husband died on October 14th. You won't remember that a year from now, but you put it in your October tickler file and you can reach out to her. You don't even have to mention the death. That might be negative. You might just reach out to her on the 14th. You might call and say, I'm just calling to check on you, seeing how you're doing. You don't mention it. She said, well, today's the day. Really? Are you doing okay? You want to pray? So tickler. Or maybe it's something you want to do with the congregation next year. Good idea, but it's only February. Well, put it in the folder. And then whenever you get down to planning next year's work, you open that folder up, and there's a bunch of ideas in there. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. We definitely needed. So a tickler file. Tickler tickles your memory, helps you remember things. Cabinet, that's a resource file. All that's done electronically now for me, but some people still keep paper files, subject files, abortion, Bible, baptism, Christ, alphabetical files on subjects. I prefer just to scan it in and put it into the same organization online, so you always have it with you and you don't have to retype it. And then your long-term file, like your long-term life goals, your core principles, those kind of things that help you to measure your success. They're a touchstone for helping you to see, well, am I really accomplishing what I want to accomplish in my life? So you visit those maybe once a year, maybe, the end of year, setting your goals for the next year, you visit your long-term folder. All right, that's 10:58. I didn't get quite as far along as I wanted to, but we did cover a lot, I think, important things. Hope it was helpful to you. Anybody have a comment or a question?
Very helpful, brother, very helpful.
Yeah, very helpful for me as well. My time management skills are weak, so.
Good. Well,
Probably on this hour of class, you help us to save months in
a lifetime, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, two things I'd like for you to read between now and the next time I teach. One is what I was going to cover today, which is time management for students. And what I've done is taken these principles and applied them to a student in a preaching school. So read those. I think you might find some things that'll be helpful. The second thing is I put in that online system. I don't remember what it's called. Last week, an article called The Spacing Effect. And it's about memorizing. And it really helped me, and it's helped my students. So I would like for you to read that. It's not a religious article. It's just about memory techniques, but it will help you to prepare for tests. And mostly it just shows how the mind works. So if you'll read those two things, and I will pick up my next class